Up to your waist in water, up to your eyes in sludge, using the kind of language that makes the sergeant blush. Oh, wouldn't join the army, that's what we all inquire. Don't we picture the poor civilians sitting around the fire? Oh, 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 it's a lovely war, it's a lovely war.
Dear Mom and Pop, it's my turn for an hour in what we call dry here on the front. Our small mess tent is elevated off the ground, so the mud runs underneath it. It's a bit windy sometimes, but the roof does keep the rain off, which is much better than being outside. Having a tent like this also gives us a small place to have a stove set up, and we dry our socks near it. Right now I see a small forest of green socks around the stove, and some of them steaming, and of course, one fellow always leaves one too close, and he'll come back to a black, ugly sock and a terrible smell. Now, I'm supposed to turn the socks to make sure they get dry, and take them back with me when I've finished my letter and my tea. Yes, tea. For some reason, these English fellows have tons of it, even though it's near impossible to get a cup of coffee at the moment. They say it'll show up soon, but they say that about practically everything, including dry socks and cigarettes and chocolate. In the meantime, we always make do, and honestly, complaining and figuring out ways to make do gives us something to do most of the time. Oh. The shelling has stopped. They say some guys crack up from it, and I can believe it. Sometimes the shelling goes on for more than a day at a time, and you start to ignore it. You try to sleep, you talk, you work, but in the back of your mind, you're always aware that it is so darn loud. Then, when it finally does stop, the lack of noise seems as loud as the sound of the exploding shells. A Canadian guy they call Frenchie, even though he sounds a lot like our guys, is teaching me some French. And he says we'll need it for when the war is over and we get to vacation in Paris. Well, I told him that when the war is over, my foot will be so far up the Kaiser's backside it'll take all my leave to pry it out. But then, everyone here has been saying things like that for a long time. I would like to see Paris. Tell Claire and Betsy that I miss them both very much, and will write them the next chance I get. Mom, in your last letter...
Kuwait is liberated. Iraq's army is defeated. Our military objectives are met. Kuwait is once more in the hands of Kuwaitis in control of their own destiny.
March 1st, 1991. Location, undisclosed. Dear Gene, I have never been more proud of these boys or being in the U.S. Army as I have been this week. All that work, that miserable rehearsal in the desert stateside paid off more than any of us ever imagined. Thanks to the relentless bombing and missile attacks, our invasion of Iraq was merely in advance. We simply crossed a border. We proceeded across hundreds of miles of desert before we met any resistance at all. Near nightfall, we finally made contact with the enemy. The sun was setting to our left, and they could have used that to get the drop on us. Lord knows it's the oldest trick in the book, but they didn't. So we hit them from a few miles out. We disabled and destroyed several tanks, and then I saw something I can only begin to describe. One of our point tanks fired on an Iraqi T-72, one of those Chinese hunks of junk, and the shell went clean through it, took out another T-72 behind it. If I hadn't seen it myself, never would have believed it. That's all it took for them to start running, and we chased them all night long, picking a few more off every time they came into view. Again, our arduous practice in the desert with night vision made all the difference. We don't have a count yet, but We took out hundreds of them, and we haven't lost a soul. After more than 2 days straight running with closed-up battle stations, we finally got a rest for a break and a hot meal. We smelled bad, and we were real hungry, as you might imagine. All we had on the trip was what we could carry, with hot coffee and cold soda only when we met up with a convoy. I can't tell you where we are or what comes next, but we might get a bit of a break since we got here much faster than anyone expected. We are all, thanks be to God and training, perfectly well here. I am so proud of my guys, this uniform, and our great country. All that recruiting in the corn states paid off big, as these boys can certainly run heavy machinery, and they know how to drive like hell when they need to. I can't thank you enough for the seat cushion you sent me. Even with air ride chairs and 5-point harnesses, bouncing across the desert is never smooth. Fortunately, we made this run in my command vehicle without anyone puking. Small mercies. I love you so much, and I will write again soon.
I used to love dinosaurs when I was a kid. I wasn't afraid, I was brave and courageous with everything I did.
Dear Matthew, it has taken me 3 times to write this letter, so bear with me. I had a nightmare tonight. We both know that's nothing new, but this time was different. I can't explain it, not really. All I can say is that I need to write some letters to Emily. I've included them here in this package, and I'd like you to keep them safe for me. If I don't come home, I need you to give these to her. I know it sounds crazy, but please, for me. And please don't read them. Love, Suzanne. Dear Emily, Hi, Bug. I know this letter is a little strange, since if you're reading it, it means I didn't come home to you. First, I want to wish you a happy birthday. You're 10 now, and that's such a big birthday. 2 numbers in your age. I want you to know how very, very much I love you. I kept a picture of you right next to my bed, so every night I could see your beautiful face and remember what it feels like to kiss you all over your little blonde head. I decided to write this letter to you while I was still gone, just in case. I was thinking about you, and there are so many things I want to tell you, so many important things for you to know. But I can't tell you everything all at once. I'm sure you're tired of hearing, I'll tell you when you're older. I sure got sick of it when I was your age. There are just some things that won't make sense to you right now, though. But there are still some things I can tell you. Looking back on what I remember from being 10 to finally reaching double digits, I remember being excited. I was really growing up. I thought maybe I could talk my mom into letting me sit at the grown-up table. It didn't work. I'm sure you are just as excited as I was. But Emily, please remember this for me. You're still a kid, and that's okay. I mean that in the most wonderful, most amazing way possible. Don't rush becoming a teenager. Just be you, and love every minute of it. It may seem ridiculous, and it's the kind of thing no one wants to tell you until you're older, But grown-ups sometimes miss being kids. Sometimes I think it's the reason people have kids, so that they can relive some of those moments. Like playing in the sprinkler, or reading under the covers with a flashlight. Getting older gets in the way of that fun sometimes, so don't outgrow it too quickly. And don't worry, I won't be mad if you ignore my advice. I did the same thing when I was your age. I was just so ready to be bigger and older. So if you don't pay attention to that, please just remember this. Your dad and I love you very, very much. More than anything else in the world. So no matter what you're going through, know that we love you. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful 10th birthday today, sweetie. I imagine that it's sunny so your friends can play outside. So go and enjoy the day. And know that I am with you always. Forever and always. Aw.
Pack all your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. While you the Lucifer tonight you...
December 12th, 1916. Bar-de-Loup, France. Dear Mother and Father, thank you for the increase in my allowance. Sure has come in handy over here. Chuck bought an old Hotchkiss saloon car and we slipped our mechanics a few bucks to make it roadworthy. And though we were expected, nobody seemed to know exactly what to do with us. We were met by an American pilot, a fellow named Norman Prince, who helped us sign into the French Foreign Legion, so we could serve in the French armed forces as non-French citizens. And then some stuffed shirt from the American embassy visited and told us in a pretty speech that by joining the French, we were renouncing our American citizenship. We blew him a collective raspberry. Our new squadron is to be called Escadrille Lafayette, which is to say, Lafayette Squadron, in honor of the French volunteers in our own war of independence. It seems that the French see our volunteering as symbolic of us returning the favor. Our new squadron commander is a Frenchman himself, but he speaks passable English, although he does seem quite stricter than he needs to be. Last week, we got our new uniforms, very crisp, and very, I must say, French. They allow us to cut quite a dash when we're on leave in Paris, even if hardly any of us speak the lingo. The French are extremely hospitable, sometimes almost to the point of embarrassment. We almost never get charged admittance to nightclubs. We often find that our bill is settled before we leave. It is enough to spoil a fellow. Yesterday, we finally transferred to an airfield closer to the action. I saw SPAD, the biplane will be flying, for the first time. I've been waiting for this moment, ever since I went on a fly-along in that Curtis at the fair back home. But we're not flying yet. The waiting is enough to drive you mad. They tell us to enjoy ourselves while we can, as combat is coming soon. Which is strange, because we rarely actually talk about fighting. Even knowing it's coming is not preparing us for it, as we are talking about the basic principles of how to fly. But no one has begun to talk about how to actually fight in the air, or even about the weapons they may be using. The other day, I asked what a Bosch plane looks like, and no one could give me a satisfactory answer. I wonder if the sailors are this uninformed the first time they went to war on the sea. I miss you all. Send my love to Uncle Gabe and on back.
When you're a long, long way from home, it makes you feel like you're alone.
January 19th, 1943, Suffolk, England. Dear Tommy, you'd asked me if I'd ever seen a Jerry plane in the air. Well, let me tell you what happened last week. Being as I fly a reconnaissance plane with just a camera and extra fuel, no guns, You can imagine bumping into a Jerry is something we try to avoid. I can't tell you where I was. If I write it in, they'll just censor it anyway. But I was on my way back from my job with almost empty tanks and a lot of exposed film. By the time I'm on my way back, I've usually been in the enemy's airspace for hours, and my nerves are ragged, to say the least. So, I'm up there in the clouds, where it's safe, just minding my own business, when my radio crackles and someone on the ground warns me that there appears to be another plane in my sector, and since there's no flight plan for any of my pals to be anywhere nearby, odds are it's a Nazi. I can't tell you how they knew he was there. You'll just have to take my word for it, like I took theirs. Your first instinct is to do something rash. Drop down a few thousand feet, bank to one direction or another, just get the hell away. But doing that would draw attention, which is something you learn never to do when you fly a plane without guns. So, I grit my teeth and just kept flying. And after a few moments in the clouds, I heard something. I heard a goddamn engine, Tommy. I couldn't see him, I could hear him. He was there, in the clouds with me. I pulled off my helmet, even though my ears started to sting from the cold almost immediately, and I tried to figure out where he was. Whenever I turned my head, I swear he moved, but it was just an illusion between the cockpit canopy and the clouds. I had no way of telling where he was. For all I knew, he was about to run into me. So I did the only thing I could do. I stayed put. I kept flying through the clouds, following my compass heading, doing my job. I held my breath, switched my fuel tanks one more time when the left wing went dry. And I prayed a little bit. I did what they taught me. I kept going, and I didn't draw attention to myself. And he went away. Not right away, but eventually I realized that the sound of his engine was getting fainter. And then I heard the pitch shift that comes with a bank turn, and a moment later, he was gone. Maybe somebody on the ground had told him I was there, just like they warned me, and he'd been hunting me. Hell, for all I know, it was just one of our boys, and there was a miscommunication on the ground. Hardly matters now. But I can tell you, I've never been more afraid in my life. If that's the closest I come to seeing Jerry during this war, I'll be a very happy man. Say hi to Mom and Pop for me.
The weapons in this war, we all know the weapons of the insurgents, the car bombs, the suicide vests, the IEDs, the mortars and the rockets, relatively low-tech weapons. The U.S. has a far more high-tech arsenal, and as Gary Tuchman reports, the Predator is one of the U.S. military's most effective tools for tracking down and eliminating insurgents. Take a look.
February 12th, 2010, Creech Air Force Base, Nevada. To markgar55@gmail.com. Hey, buddy. You know, it's kind of douchey saying that I'm not pulling my weight when all you're doing is pushing paperwork as an REMF there in Rammstein. I hope all that strudel and schnitzel and beer isn't making you too fat. At least I see my enemy combatants on a screen. What do you see every day? Porn and requisition forms? Admittedly, I'm not on the front lines, but I still feel like I'm contributing. Unlike you, I was smart enough to know that joining the Air Force wasn't a guarantee I'd get to be a fighter pilot. But I have to say, being a drone pilot isn't too bad. I find it hilarious, though, that they make an effort to make sure we feel good about ourselves, calling us pilots, giving us jumpsuits even though we never actually climb into a cockpit. You and I have the same job, I guess, in the sense that we pull a regular shift in an office. Like someone in the real world with a desk job. At least things are nice and air conditioned here because it's like 100 degrees out. Although the air conditioning is for the computers and not the humans. Yeah. What's weird to me is the guys who can't hack it. Not to bust balls, but I'm a chick. You think that if I can handle it, the big tough guys could, right? This guy Barnes, he just washed out yesterday, just up and quit. It'll go on his record, but we're beyond the days when you'd actually get in trouble for it. At least he saved his freak out for a day when he wasn't doing something really important. So I asked his navigator what the deal was, and he told me Barnes couldn't handle the guilt over killing people. Can you believe that? You know, that bumper sticker, guns don't kill people. Well, I'm the gun. I don't choose who dies. And someone more important than me pulls the trigger. I just make sure the bullet goes where it's supposed to go. And if I didn't do it, you best believe there'd be someone waiting to take my place. Why the hell should I feel guilty about that? Oh, and just so you know, I don't mind, because I know you're an asshole, but if another drone pilot heard you make a crack about us just playing video games, you get your ass kicked. It may look the same, but we're trained to do a job and we fucking take it seriously. But really, shit could be a lot worse. I don't know about you, but being able to go home to a real bed at night and get wings and beer whenever I want to beats the hell out of sucking down sand, am I right? Insert your mom joke here. See ya.
It is the policy of the United States government to advise and assist the people of the Republic of Vietnam in their struggle to defeat the communist insurgency which strives to eradicate their freedom.
September 8th, 1967, undisclosed, Vietnam. Dear Dad, you really have no idea what you did, do you? Yesterday, I was sure I was a goner. We were right on the Cambodian border with no support anywhere within 50 miles. Our plane, one of those small single-engine beavers, it was losing oil. It spread all over the windshield, and the pilot couldn't see a damn thing. We went down more like a rock than a plane, and I woke up outside the plane, thrown out of it, so you could say the landing was rough. So there we were, with a load of stuff we were supposed to deliver for the CIA, and we sat in the middle of that goddamn clearing like ducks in a shooting gallery for half an hour with no support and no cover before the Jeep finally showed up, and these things keep happening. I want you to know that I don't think I'm going to make it back. But if I do, you'll never hear about it. This was all your idea, you son of a bitch. Someone says, we're going to war, and you think it's a good idea? You told me to join the army, and since I didn't know what to do with my life, I was scared and confused, so I did what you told me. But you didn't know anything about war or the army, or where do you get off suggesting it like it's a good idea? But don't think I'm just angry at you. No, I'm pissed at myself too. But more than anything, I despise you for wanting me to be here. What the fuck kind of values do you have? What does that say about you? Are you hoping I'll die here so you can brag about me? When I graduated from officers' candidate school, I felt stronger, more optimistic, more confident, and god damn it, that's when you told me that I had become loud and obnoxious? Jesus Christ, you didn't think a simple congratulations might have been in order. And the thing that pisses me off the most is I will never send you this letter. I feel like less of a man because of it. Hey, Vic, I think about you a lot over here, and what it would be like if you were here, and I want you to stay in school. Vic, I need you to. I'm glad you're my brother, and I want you to stay in one piece. Speaking of which, Mom wrote me and said that you got into some trouble with the law, and I know you'll be ticked that she told me, but I wanted you to know that I know. And I really think that means you need to double down on your school stuff. I mean, at least graduate, for Christ's sake. Life is huge, and it can be amazing, and I want you to get your own big piece of it, and you won't get that if you keep fucking around. You sure as hell won't get it if you wind up over here. As for me, well, I'm doing fine. You know, the sun shines every day here in lovely Vietnam. The pack of cigarettes is just 20 cents. The women are beautiful, and The longer I'm here, the more beautiful they get. Last week, I saw an amazing Buddhist temple. And I saw a lieutenant from the Corps of Engineers eat a lizard live. I'll write again soon. Just remember, I love you, and quit dicking around with the cops. Actually, one more thing. It's weird, but I'm asking anyway. The next time you see a pretty girl, ask her if you can give her a hug, and then you hold her close for me. Remember what it feels like. Tell me about it the next time you write me. I love you, buddy. Stay focused.
All over the world, the United States Army is on the alert to defend our country, you, the American people, against aggression.
March 13th, 1991, Gulf, location, well, you know. Dear Greg, I know it's ridiculous, but they are passing around paperwork to re-up, and I am seriously thinking about it. I did the National Guard thing for the money and the education, you know. Didn't like it. It's different when it counts somehow. It's plenty not to like. Being on a boat this long, it kind of sucks. Never felt like I made a difference before, but here now, I really do. Captain seems to think I do well for myself in the Army. Of course, there's not going to be a war anytime soon now that we kick Saddam's teeth in. There's still things to do, and I don't want to be stuck behind a desk for the rest of my life. Cap talks things like intelligence and officers candidate school, and I know it's probably bullshit to tempt me into re-upping, but what's the alternative? Coming back home, going to work at the bank? That sounds boring. Dad always said that everyone's good at something. We both know you're really good at being a dad, and since you have managed not to run that business in the ground, you must be an okay carpenter. But I never felt like I was particularly good at anything. Here, the men above me respect what I can do, and the men beneath me do what they're told because they trust me. And everyone knows that doing what you're told to do when you're told to do it might make the difference between life and death here. You could dismiss what I do by just saying I'm another cog in the machine, but I've seen what the rusty, rickety cogs do, and I'm proud not to be one of them. Regardless, I have not made a decision yet. Wanda, you know I'm thinking about it. If you want to tell me that I'm an idiot, that's fine. But if Dad was right, and everyone is good at something, maybe this is what that is. I never felt like I fit in or what I did mattered or even felt worthwhile before. So if that's what this is, then I would be a fool to walk away from it, wouldn't I? I do know that while everyone else is talking about how hot it is out here and that they can't wait to go home, all I miss is having a cold beer. Should be able to book some phone time and call you soon. Say hi to Cindy and make funny faces at the kids for me.
October 22nd, 2001, Taif, Saudi Arabia. Hey, Jerry. You know, you'd think this would be exciting, but it's not. I do the same thing here that I did back home, which is loading and unloading. The Air Force considers it a special skill, but I just feel like a trained monkey. The guys on base are excited. There's a lot of fist bumps and high fives, and they keep talking about Operation Enduring Freedom, but I just keep thinking that it'll be over eventually, and one day someone's going to ask me what I did in the War on Terror. And the only thing I'm going to be able to tell them is that I drove a little golf cart around. You know, you can see guys do that at the airport every day. The only difference is instead of flying around luggage, I'm pulling munitions. But the pilots love it, of course. You know, it's the first real destruction most of them have ever gotten a hand out, and they're doing multiple missions a day, coming back, refueling, reloading, and then heading out to do it all over again. Must be like going from college football right to the goddamn Super Bowl. You know, I'm doing the same thing that I was a month ago. And the same thing I'll be doing a month from now, regardless of where I happen to be. I mean, the basic's the same. Shit, back in the States, we were in the desert too. Even have pretty much the same food. So what difference does it make? You know, what difference do I make? You know, I could have a heart attack tomorrow and someone could take my place without missing a beat. Seems like even the mechanics are getting to contribute. You know, without them, the pilots wouldn't be able to get there and all that shit, and if they fuck up, someone could die. If they succeed, everything goes on well, they get credit. You know, do they have some poor bastard in a base somewhere who does this for weapons? Like, it's his job to put rounds and magazines over and over again all day long? Or do they have a machine for that? You know, I never really thought about it, but, like, how many of us are there? There's some asshole dragged into Normandy a week after D-Day to serve chili to the fucking soldiers. You know, someone come back from Saigon where all he did was file paperwork? And I bet some poor bastard did this the last time we were in the Middle East too. Probably at the same fucking base. You know, I never thought I'd be a pilot or something important. I just didn't think I'd feel so disposable. Aim high my ass.
I wasn't afraid, I was brave and courageous with everything I did.
Dear Emily, happy 13th birthday. 13 seems like such a big deal, but I remember being really surprised that I didn't feel any different the next day. I didn't feel older or more mature. It seemed like a lot of waiting for absolutely nothing. And I'll tell you a secret. I didn't get my period until I was 14. And honestly, that was the first thing that made me feel like I was growing up. Another thing I remember is that it seems like everybody is always telling you what to do. Your dad certainly will, and you should listen to him. But it seemed like my friends were telling me what I should do, which was different from what my dad said. And then my teacher said something else, and it got really confusing. The most important thing for you to remember with all of those different messages from so many people is that you need to do what feels right for you. If someone tells you to do something that feels wrong, then you shouldn't do it. I'm not talking about little things like where you should shop or what brands you should buy. I mean the big things, like lying to your dad or skipping school. It might be hard, and it takes a special kind of bravery to decide to be different, especially from your friends. But now's when those choices will start coming up. Sometimes it was really annoying to have a sister who was so much younger than me. Your Aunt Rachel always wanted to be so much older than she was, and she was always stealing my clothes and my makeup. But she was your age not so very long ago. When you're a young woman, there are some things you just can't talk to your dad about, and that's okay. But when these things do come up, I don't want you to hold them inside. That's not good for you. Promise me that you'll call up Aunt Rachel and talk to her. But she went from being my annoying little sister to one of my best friends. And I know if you call her, she will be there for you. Being 13 is tough enough without being alone. The best thing that you can do is reach out to those who care about you. Since I can't be there for you in person, I can at least remind you to do that. It will make things easier, if not better. I promise. And always remember, I love you so very much. Forever and always, Mom.
The purpose of that resolution was to disarm Iraq of its weapons of mass destruction. Iraq had already been found guilty of material breach of its obligations, stretching back over 16 previous resolutions and 12 years.
May 8th, 2004, Baghdad.
to macmackers@yahoo.com. Hey, dude. You know, I used to have a really simple equation for if I had a good day over here, just like that Ice Cube song. If I didn't have to use my weapon, if no one shot at me, you'd have to think that was a pretty good day, right? I don't think like that anymore. The government spent a lot of money training me and my men to do a specific job, and we keep expecting to get to do it, only we never do. That's starting to ruin my days. I can only begin to describe what it's like to be standing outside of a door, your mask in place, everyone's checking the seals on each other's protective gear, the tape on your wrists and ankles, and we all check our weapons and go in. The noise of the battering ram is muffled by the protective gear. The hardest part, honestly, is not getting lazy. Why observe proper entry protocol when you know that just like the last 40 times, you're not going to find anything? At first, every door was potentially a death factory. Some towelhead nut job is working on a dirty bomb, or a Frankenstein lab is pumping out sarin or anthrax. But how many times can you be surprised by nothing before you start to get used to it? And the biggest danger is that when, and by when I mean if, we find something that we're actually looking for, we're not going to be very fast on the trigger and someone's going to get hurt. Or the anticipation of this will have been built up so much that we won't be able to do our jobs properly because we're too goddamn excited. So, it used to be that I would have a good day if no one got hurt. Now, I don't know what a good day would be. I can tell you what it isn't. It's not feeling like I've spent all day getting jerked off by so-called intelligence and then coming back to the barracks to find the guys watching The Daily Show and finding out that the mission that we do every day, the fact that we are potentially risking our lives every fucking day, to find out that what we're doing is nothing but a joke back home. I think it's going to be a long time before I have a good day again.
I can look across just at a building not far away and see something that looks like a splash of white paint down the side. And I know from daylight observation that about a quarter of that building has disappeared, hit by a bomb the other night.
March 3rd, 1942, London, England. Dear Father, as you might imagine, with there being a war on and all, we don't get a lot of free time. I do get an afternoon off once a week, and I've been using it to explore London. Obviously, I can't talk about what I'm doing, but I'm still with the General, and since we're based here in the city, I figured I might as well take advantage of it. Based on my experience last month, God knows where we'll be next. The damage done to this city is truly astonishing. They say the worst of it is over, but it looks like a giant child went through the city and threw a temper tantrum. I went to Westminster Abbey the other day, which is where all the famous people get buried and the royals get married and such. It was amazing. And astoundingly, it remains untouched, but it seems like all around it, buildings that were just as beautiful have been destroyed. Blocks are still blackened from fire and smoke. Craters are still roped off in the streets. And now that the rockets have started coming in, everyone, everywhere, carries a case with a gas mask. Some of the women do their best to make them look fashionable, but if the masks actually come out, we'll all look just the same, like giant insects. I hadn't planned on returning to architecture, Dad, but when all is said and done, I think I will. I remember when we all went to New York for the weekend and you took us to St. Patrick's. You taught me the basics then, the buttresses and the arches and the angles. And that, I think, was where the love of math came from. It got me here and working on, well, what I'm working on. Every day on the way from my boarding house to the office, I passed the skeleton of a church. It was never as impressive as Westminster or St. Patrick's, but I always notice it. One morning I stopped in, as it's always too dark to explore by the time we finally leave work, and I looked around. The building has never been tidied. There were still bits of broken stained glass about, burned up Bibles in the ashes. I even found a partly melted pound coin. A policeman stuck his head in and saw me and yelled at me. For crossing the safety line and making a fool of myself, he shooed me out of the building and left me on the curb. I turned around and looked at what was left of the church, and then down at what was left of the coin in my hand. And then I sat down on the curb and I cried. Like I haven't cried since Mother died. I don't know what's wrong with me. I miss you. Your son.
It's 6 a.m. in Kabul, Afghanistan. Camp Phoenix always rises before the sun. Coalition forces roll out before daylight.
January 19th, 2006. Camp Phoenix, Afghanistan. Dear Jim, hopefully you remember me. I was a roof gunner on an escort that took you to Kabul a couple months ago. You gave me your card. I guess I'm hoping that through your work with USAID, you have some connections at the UN or something. Since I'm writing you, obviously this isn't an army matter. I have a good CO, but I know there's nothing he can do about this. There was a young man who used to help out here at Camp Phoenix. We all called him Kid, even though he was clearly of age. He would not have been allowed to work at the post. We kind of adopted him. He liked helping out and having a way to earn a few extra dollars for his family. One day he didn't show up, and the next day he wasn't himself. I asked him what the problem was, and I got the story I'm going to tell you. His name's Ahmed, and his best friend had just been arrested. Ahmed was brought in by the MDS and shown a document. He was pressured to do the right thing, the whole God and country spiel. The document said that he was a witness to his buddy's blasphemy against Allah and Islam. Of course, he refused to sign it. They showed him pictures of his friend beat to shit and told him he was next. When he still refused, they handed him a cell phone, and his family told him there were armed police outside ready to take him all away. So he signed it. His buddy got a 2-minute trial. They said he printed out a blog post from an Iranian radical sharing feminist ideas. Sharing those ideas is blasphemy, a crime against God and man, open and shut. The court system, such as it is, does allow for an appeal. So Ahmed said that he couldn't stick to his story, even though it might get his friend in trouble. He was going to say at the appeal that he had given testimony that wasn't true, that he was coerced. I wanted to tell him to reconsider, but I could tell from the look on his face that he wouldn't. It was the same look I've seen on men I fought with who do what they have to do, even if it means they probably won't make it. The date of the appeal was 3 days ago. We haven't seen him since. Like I said, this isn't a military matter. Fuck. I feel like I need to do something. Anything. I'm sorry this email is coming out of the blue, but it seemed like you might have a suggestion of what I can do. For all I know, you hear about this stuff every day. How can we leave this country in better shape than we found it in if stuff like this still happens?
For a moment at least, giving thanks in a war zone. It started early and energetically for American troops in Afghanistan, A 10K turkey trot brought hundreds out at 5 a.m.
Dear Bill, I remember we always talked about wanting a white holiday in San Diego. Let me tell you, if having a white Christmas means it's this fucking cold all the time, you can keep your snow. They weren't able to do anything special for us for Thanksgiving up here on the front, but they say they're going to try to rotate us out for Christmas. If we're really lucky, we might even get some leave somewhere sunny like the Philippines. God knows any change of scenery would be welcome, and we're beginning to feel like we're not doing a hell of a lot here. We hear stories of guys really getting into the shit, and I don't know if I should be glad that's not us or ashamed. I want to be glad. They say Bob Hope and his famous putter will be dropping by during the holidays for a USO show. The rumors about who he's bringing with him are crazy, but the best one I've heard so far is that they would bring Marilyn Monroe. Can you imagine? What would you even say to her if you met her in person? I keep picturing a stumbling, mumbling horde of soldiers all trying to get up the courage to talk to her. I know we never made a big deal.
About the holidays, they should try here in the hospital. There were decorations up for Halloween too, and they're making a big deal about Thanksgiving as well. I'm sure the cranberry sauce won't be as good as yours. But the nurses promise the cooks always do their best. I really appreciate that you sent my Christmas package so early, just in case. I'm receiving the 2 wrapped presents for the holiday itself. And in the meantime, the fellows would love the matchbox cards you sent. Those who are up and about having races on the polished floors. It's like watching really big kids. They say I'll be on my feet soon, although it won't be easy. I wanted to let you know that I don't know if you talk to Mom and Dad or not these days, but if you do, please let them know that I'm going to be okay. And I'd like to be able to come home when I get back. I think they try to make the holidays
special here, to make us feel better about not being at home. Somehow it doesn't always work that way. It just makes me feel more homesick. I never liked Thanksgiving that much anyway. I have to tell you, though, what happened yesterday, it's going to change the way I feel about this damn holiday for the rest of my life. I'm sure you heard by now that without any announcement, the president came to see us yesterday. It's the first time any president has visited Iraq ever. Real Thanksgiving meal, turkey, all that, it wasn't going to be that special to me, but having him visit was something else. I didn't get close enough to shake his hand, but a lot of us did. He didn't make a big deal about being there, and he didn't give a big speech, but he said something that I will never forget. He talked about why we were there and what was important, and he said, "We will prevail, we will stay until the job is done." I never felt bigger or more important in my life. I'd forgotten that I'm fighting for our country's freedom, and I'm part of something that I can brag about that might change the world. I guess he's got my vote next time. I love you so much, and I hope that I will be with you and the kids this time next year.